This may get a little bit nerdy on solar and specifically solar monitoring. And because I like to tinker around, I like to change things and experiment, I like using a lot of solar monitoring. And I'm not always on my property, so I can do this from almost anywhere. Now, I'm basically using two different types of monitoring software. One is the Victron VRM, and because the majority of my equipment is Victron, but not all of it. For the things that are not Victron, then I'm using Solar Assistant, which is a software package that runs on Raspberry Pi, or one of the different Pis. You can buy your own compatible device, load it yourself. I think the software is actually free or very, very inexpensive, or you can buy it from them, the hardware and the software already preloaded. And I think that's what I did on this one. And it's talking to an EG4 3000 all-in-one inverter charger type thing. So it's a little yellow one. And then I've also got a stack of EG4 batteries, rack mount batteries, and they talk to the inverter. And so the state of charge comes from the batteries through the inverter to the Solar Assistant, and then the Solar Assistant can just talk to the device and control it. So if you're using Victron, or if you're using Schneider or Lion or Grid Down or any of the others, they should have something similar, but I don't have those up and running to be able to show you. What this one is about is an anomaly that I noticed on my AC side yesterday. So I had made a change last time I went down there to my property, and I'll make one change a lot of times and watch it for a little while and just kind of see how it acts. How does it affect the amount of power that I'm using, that I need to generate? Am I, if I move a panel, am I making more power? Just overall picture, little by little, and learning my system and seeing where I need to make changes to make it more efficient and to make it safer. So in this case, this is kind of the landing page of Solar Assistant, the dashboard. Since my solar panels are not coming directly into that all-in-one, they're actually going into the Victron charge controllers, that energy does not show up here. That shows up on the Victron side. The battery state of charge does show up here. I'm not connected to the grid. I'm not using a generator as the grid connect, so nothing's going to show up there. All this device is doing is acting like a standalone inverter for the most part right now. It is showing that at this instant, it is supplying about 70 watts of AC to the system. That's not DC, that's AC that it's supplying. And of course, no solar is coming in, no grid's coming in, and it's pulling about 30 something watts from the battery. Actually, doing that, you can see this grid. If I had solar and grid on there, then the blue line would be the AC that it's supplying. Red line would be how much of that's coming in from the grid connect, and how much the yellow line that doesn't exist, well, it's down here, would be how much is coming in from the PV, from the solar. And you kind of see it there. You get some other graphs here. If I go over to totals, you can kind of see over the last 30 days how much AC has been supplied. So whether the energy is coming at a given moment from solar or from the batteries, in this case it thinks it's all from the batteries, it has converted 5 kilowatt hours from DC to AC and supplied it to loads. So that gives you kind of a summary of that per day for the last 30 days. You get kind of a graph and stuff like that. 52 weeks for the year, get a lot of this. Now, for the purpose of this particular discussion, go back 2 days. So this is basically 2 days ago, because it's 10 a.m. in the morning. So this is 2 days ago at like 11:12. You can kind of see the time in the little box that's moving in the top right of that little box. You got the date and you got the time up top. And this has been the normal pattern when I'm not down there and the mini split's on and stuff like that. And I've kind of learned looking at this what is which load. So right here, where it's the load power is about 67.8 watts. That 67.8 watts for the most part is the Starlink, because that's constant. You see right here. I mean, that's always there. It's always underlying. So that line, if I could pull it out specifically for that device, that 60 to 70 watts would be constant. So that's kind of my nominal everyday floor there. This little burp or blip right here, where it goes up to almost 200 watts, is when the refrigerator comes on. Now, my refrigerator is actually a chest freezer. It's not this specific one. I just a picture of one. It's a small chest freezer. And what I do is I have one of these little Inkbirds. It's plugged into the wall, and then you set a upper and lower, or you set a middle temperature. In my case, I've got it set to 37 degrees. Okay, 37 degrees is my temperature I want to achieve. And then you set it 2 degrees or 3 degrees plus or minus. So how much leeway above and below 37 do you want? I've got mine set to 3 degrees. So what that gives me is a range of 34 to 40 is, quote, normal. When it's in that normal, you've got two plugs. One says heating, one says cooling. Those plugs are off. If it gets above the 40 degrees, then the plug that's marked cooling, that becomes energized. I plug the freezer into that one, and then so what that ends up doing is, and then you see the little metal probe on the black wire there between the two, that's a temperature probe, and that is just hanging inside. Just open the lid, throw the wire over the top of it, and when I shut it, it seals it. But that metal probe is sitting inside the freezer, but not touching anything. It's not taped to the wall or anything like that. That would skew it. I want the ambient air temperature within there. So when the temperature becomes 41 degrees, so more than 3 degrees above my 37 degree that I set it, that cooling plug becomes energized, which starts the freezer. The compressor kicks on and it begins cooling down. Now, of course, it's a freezer, and regardless of where I set it, it's going to want to get below 32 degrees. It's going to want to freeze. But when that temperature gets down to the 37, or maybe a degree or two below the 37 that I have it set to, that plug where it says cooling turns off, which turns off the compressor on the freezer, thereby making the freezer a refrigerator that stays between 35 to 40 degrees. If I wanted to use it for a heating system, and I could do both at the same time possibly, let's say I had a small heater of some kind that didn't pull more power than this thing can handle, I'd plug it into heating, in which case when it got below 35, then the heating plug would turn on, powering whatever's plugged into it. So this is a way to kind of trick a freezer, which is much more efficient than an upright refrigerator because it's insulated better. Plus, when you open the door, you don't lose all the cold air, into being a refrigerator and saving a lot of power. So here we got Starlink here. This is when the compressor is coming on for the freezer and going off, going on, going off, and you kind of get an idea. This is my normal pattern, especially when I'm not down there and nobody's opening it, closing it, putting hot things in, stuff like that. Just being left alone, that's the normal pattern. Everything above that, this is the mini split, and you see it kind of ramps up when it's hotter outside. It's having to work harder and going back down. And some of these spikes, you notice we still have this same pattern. So there's the refrigerator plus the mini split, refrigerator plus the mini split, refrigerator, mini split, kind of thing, plus Starlink. So it all adds up. So this is kind of my normal pattern over 24 hours. Okay. Now then, so the last time I was down there, get out of this. Last time I was down there, I wanted to try something. First thing I did is actually I turned the mini split down because I'm doing so well with my power. I'm charging the batteries to 100% by 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I've got excess power that could be used, because after 1 o'clock when the batteries are full, it's just keeping things running, but it's not storing anymore. So I might as well, there's potential power there I could be using that I'm not. So I turned the mini split from 86 degrees, as high as it would go, to 78. And keep it a little bit cooler there, use some of this power that I'm generating. So that's where a lot of this is. But what I also did, because that freezer has a compressor, and when a compressor kicks on, that's what these spikes are. You get kind of a spike. I was curious if I put a soft start, and I have this one, if I put that in line, would it help kind of smooth out that, the energy spike, even though it's not very much. It's never over 200 watts, including, so that's what, 100, and let's say it gets to 200 watts and you take out the 60 for the Starlink, that's 140, watts on a 3,000 watt inverter. Not a big deal, but just out of curiosity, I thought, let's give it a try and see what it does. And I think I actually put it in earlier, because you notice even here, the waveform's a little bit different. But then I got this. This looks completely different. I was hoping that this would be smoothed out more, much smoother, not more jagged. So I really wasn't sure what was going on. So I was watching this through the afternoon. You see this is about 8 o'clock. So this starts around 6 o'clock in the afternoon, going into the night. And then around midnight, I don't know why, it's probably just a coincidence, it really changes. You still got the 60 watt floor, but got all this almost like fibrillation on a EKG. Something's going on. And then right here, I happened to wake up around 4 o'clock and saw this. And my concern was I had tried that soft start on a window unit. So a little 5,000 BTU window unit. And at that time I was running it off of a 1200 watt inverter. And I was trying to, protect everything a little bit, make it a little bit smoother. And I have the feeling that putting that soft start on there, however it actually works, actually ended up burning out the compressor on that little 5,000 watt BTU window unit. So that concerned me. One, is this the compressor getting stuck, can't really start, can't really turn off, it keeps trying to, but for whatever reason it can't. Will it burn it out? And not only will it burn it out, but could it actually burn it up and cause a fire? So in the middle of the night, around 4 to 5 o'clock in the morning, I got up, drove the 15 miles to my property, and started troubleshooting. I took that soft start out, let everything sit for a little while, plugged the freezer directly into the wall outlet. Compressor came on. It looked fine. I double-checked the settings on that Inkbird, and then went through a couple cycles to make sure it was operating correctly, that I hadn't damaged the Inkbird, which if I damaged anything, that would be the cheapest thing to replace. Either that, or I just, if I burned out the compressor on the freezer, I just have to get rid of it and probably go get a regular refrigerator, dorm size refrigerator or something. So I spent about an hour or so down there doing some different troubleshooting and stuff. And as you can see, it is now back to a normal pattern. So besides showing just how I can, how you can turn a deep freeze with an Inkbird or something similar into a refrigerator for off-grid efficient power use and stuff like that, if you ever think about using some kind of a hard start or soft start on that, at this point, I'm not a plumber, I'm not an electrician, I would say no, and I'd be curious to see if there is somebody who is an HVAC and or electrician that could give me some insight onto, is it just a general bad practice and can damage these smaller compressors on things like refrigerators and freezers? Or I know there's a difference between a hard start and a soft start device, and there's some fancy soft starters that have Bluetooth and monitoring and all kinds of stuff like that. Is this just a cheap, crappy version, and would a better one do better? But also just kind of showing, in my opinion, the importance of monitoring. It doesn't have to be over the internet that anybody can get to, be able to see and all that kind of stuff, but potentially it can help you see problems coming with your own property or off the property ahead of time before you damage equipment and possibly cause a fire.